What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to more Black Desert. My name is John, and every time they do a major update like the Calpheon Ball, Heidel Ball, or just some sort of grind spot change, I like to update this video that I talk about at least 10 different ways of improving your grind. And recently I also made some videos on the best spots for XP, silver, and places for silver with Agris and non-Agris. So I thought it'd be a good time to update this video and just tell you guys how to improve and or grind more efficiently. So I was also talking to some of my friends who are actually newer to the game, and they asked me for a lot of advice on how to just grind better. And so I figured I might as well just make a video and help everyone out, and I'll talk about a lot of different things that will help you improve. So first of all, when you watch a new player grind, whether it's your friend, a streamer, some other video you found, they're probably using basic things like some sort of cron meal, the simple or exquisite, and then they probably have some sort of draft on. And although that's good, I want to teach you guys how to improve that even further. And there's a lot of stuff that you can have as buffs, and there's a lot of things to remember, admittedly. And I think one thing they mentioned in the Calpheon Ball was they're going to have like an all-in-one UI. I don't know how it's going to work. I didn't really look too much into it, but hopefully it's going to be a lot easier to remember the 15 different steps. It's not that many actually. But anyway, I'll show you some things that I use. So I have a fairy, and we'll talk about that later on. But as a basic general guideline, some things you should have is a simple cron meal, because that allows you to get extra AP against monsters, allowing you to grind faster, more efficiently. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer whether you're using exquisite versus simple cron. I think simple cron is slightly better in PvE just because it gives you the straight up plus 30 on the AP against monsters, and all of these stats are generally useful. Whereas this one is giving you more of percentage damage and more stuff. It's kind of, I don't know, it's one of those things where there's no right or wrong answer. I think simple cron is generally the more used in PvE, and exquisite for PvP, but that's just a general baseline. And if you're using the other one for either one, it's not a big deal. So this is what I use, and this is for, I would say, 99% of players. You're probably going to have some sort of food on. You're going to have a draft or maybe an elixir. I would say party elixirs are definitely for endgame players and people who are trying to push higher end grind spots, along with party spots, of course. That's what they're for. And so even though we'll talk about both of them, I would say most people will just do fine if you have a frenzy or a beast giant draft and one of these, and you'll just be good to go. I think perfumes are a luxury item for the most part, because they do give bonus stats like extra AP. These are very expensive, so I wouldn't really recommend using them in lower areas where you're way over clearing. They're just one of those things where you could push the maximum of your character when you grind spot, and it's one of those things that it's nice to have luxury, but you don't particularly need it. I think one thing that I would recommend for everyone if you're in the market for perfumes is either the Spirit Perfume Elixir or the Bracing one, which is, these are essentially the same thing. This one has 5 extra AP against monsters, and it's not the expensive version that is the Perfume of Courage. So I realistically only use the Perfume of Courage at really high-end spots. If I'm grinding I don't know, some 280 spot where I know I'm not going to die and my AP is generally way above, I'll just use a Bracing or Spirit just to make sure that, HP is way off the max so I can go AFK or something and not behind. And even then, that's not a big deal. And then the extra scrolls that we'll talk about later. So having food and elixirs is actually very important because it allows you to do more damage either to anything, and along with more survivability if you are trying out new grind spots. So there's a lot of good reasons to have it. And I think it's something that you should start adding to your daily rotation or daily grind or whatever. So the next thing we're going to have is church buffs. The way you can find it, they actually added this to the game recently, is an NPC. So if you didn't know what all these things actually mean at the top over here, this one is a find NPC. And in each town, or not really every town, but if you just click a button, it'll auto path you to the nearest one. So what you're going to want to look for is the silver or the church buffs one. And it's in pretty much every town. So yeah, the one we have is in Heidel right now that I'm going to show you. So you're going to talk to this NPC, and basically what they sell is 3 different buffs. One for offensive, one for defensive, and one for experience. The difference is these are for 2 hours, the 3 mil ones, and these are 300 minutes, I think 5 hours for the 10 mil one. So I guess it depends where you're grinding and how much you grind. So sometimes I put them on the 5 hours, sometimes I only feel like grinding an hour a day or not. So it's definitely very important. I'll actually, you know what? I'll buy them to show you exactly what they do. All right, so I'll buy all of them. The effects are the same. The time is just different. So the offensive one is 8 AP, 8 accuracy. Very nice to have. Defensive one is damage reduction plus 8 and 150 HP. Not always needed, but, you know, if you're grinding a higher end spot, I think it's definitely worth, you know, not dying. So that's always good. And the experience one is just combat and skill XP plus 15%. So if you're just trying to push levels, that's the way to go. I'm actually going to try to push 66 at some point in the future. So definitely church buffs are not something to skip out on, because as we all know, once you hit your sheet AP and the bracket, you see the number in the bracket, that's what people call like AP brackets. So after that, it is like 1 AP on your sheet is the similar or the same thing as 1 of these. So if you're buying that, it's essentially like getting 8 AP on your sheet, except the number in the bracket doesn't change. So yeah, more AP on your stat sheet right here is always good, and you'll get more depending on what you do. So the next thing we have is a tent buff. So there's a free tent and a paid tent. Paid tent meaning like you spend real money. And I think right now, if you are thinking about buying it, I would only recommend buying it while it's on sale, because it goes on sale quite often. So it is a very helpful item. I do believe there are a few things that we'll talk about in a second that are good options. So when you have the tent, here's how it works. When you open the tent, you're going to see a menu like this, the campsite. If you have the free version, like the non-pearl permanent one, you get 4 different items that you have to equip, which allow you to access different menus. And so like these items right here, the ones you get that aren't permanent, I believe you go to an Old Moon vendor and you're able to craft them, or you could just Google a video on how to do that. You know what? I'll actually just leave a link in the description. I have one that I made on how to get a free one, and it's a very easy quest line. It should probably only take you like 15 minutes tops, and you just have to renew it every week instead of just a permanent one where you never have to worry about it again. It's a convenience item. So what they do is it allows you to buy a Villa scroll. I believe that if you have this one and you're just using it for Villa scrolls, you do have to have an Old Moon buff going on, which is kind of annoying, but it allows you to, not have to do a lot of extra steps. So the way it worked back in the day when I played and there was no tent is you see these icons right here, these villas. You would have to basically talk to the NPC, and you pay like a 10 mil gold bar, and 10 mil was a lot back in the day when people were grinding for maybe like 5 mil an hour, and nowadays people grind for like 2 bill an hour. So how over the years things change and progression ramps up. So anyway, it's more of a convenience thing nowadays. So instead of having to talk to the NPC at a villa, buying a scroll, and then getting the buffs from the desert, nowadays you can just do it through a tent, which is very nice. And so that's why I always recommended for anyone who can only get one of the buffs, like the Value Pack or the Blessing of Kamasil and the Secret Book of Old Moon. First of all, you get the Value Pack is basically like the $15 a month sub that everyone, you know, every MMO has, followed by the Secret Book of Old Moon, just because it allows you to do this. And the Blessing of Kamasil, obviously 20% item drop rate and energy recovery is nice, but it's the least effective of the 3 that we have, like in terms of daily usefulness. So that's just in my opinion. If you can get all 3, awesome. They kind of give you a lot of these, especially now if you're playing, like just playing whether you spend money or not. They gave a lot of these away just by logging in. Christmas rewards, Calpheon Ball. So you guys should be stocked up, good to go for all of these, at least for the next month and a half or something. I didn't buy any of these. They just kind of, here, log in, get some goodies. Cool. So anyway, with that said, allows you to buy a Villa Scroll. These give you body enhancement, skill and experience, and life skilling. If you're grinding, you want the body enhancement one just because more AP allows you to grind more. Defensive, offensive, survivability, resistances, and everything. The skill and experience one, I think this is only useful if you are way over geared and you're grinding for XP, or you're like getting leeched at some spot and you just want to get as much XP as you can. But that one is like very specific, whereas if you're the one grinding, you always have the body enhancement one. And these are all just timers on like how long do you want to grind for, essentially, and this is life skill. So yeah, having a tent buff, whether you have the paid or the non-paid, like, you know, real life money versus in-game silver one, they basically function the same thing. I think the difference is you just have to like renew this every week, and it's, I don't know if it's tedious or not, but you also get loot's item drop rate bonuses here, which is when people say tent buff, this is what they mean. Like, you get item drop rate from 10 to 50%, and it's really nice to have. So next thing on our list is a horse buff. Now, admittedly, this is one of the more intermediate to end game items, and you could get it no matter where you're at in the game. I'll just show you what it looks like and how to actually get it. So first of all, it doesn't matter what horse you have. Like, the horse itself is irrelevant. What you're going to want to look for is Krogdalo gear, and you're going to need 5 pieces of them. And if you go search Krogdalo, admittedly, there's a good chance you're going to have to make it yourself, but it's very easy, and I'll show you how in a second. So Krogdalo gear, there's 3 different sets of 5 pieces, right? And so the earth one, when you have all 5 of them, it gives you like a defensive buff. The wind one is the one I have. It gives you 5 AP for an hour, so 5 AP is essentially like, you know, 5 AP. And then the sea one, I actually have this on my second horse, is more HP and stamina. In my opinion, for most people, the wind one will be the best one, followed by probably sea for survivability, and then earth. Ultimately, whichever one you want, none of them are bad. I just think the AP one is better. So you're going to get all 5 pieces. It doesn't matter what enhancement level you are at. Sometimes I actually see them sitting, and if you get lucky, you can just buy them. Otherwise, here's how it works. I'll show you very quickly how to get it. Stonetail Ranch. There is a horse refinery thing, and it tells you like how to make every single piece, and you just look at how to get it. So the bottleneck for most of you guys is probably going to be the earth, or not earth, but like the fragment, and I'll show you what that is and how to get it. So these thingies. So the fragments, the earth one, water, and wind spirit ones. So the one for AP is the wind one, and I'll show you how to get it. So down in Kama Sylvia, if you're going for the infinite potions, down in the Navern Steppe zone, you're gonna find a lot of those bird enemies, and then if you're gathering, they just kind of drop them like candy. So maybe about an hour you can get like 1 piece an hour if you have the other material. So it doesn't take that long to get it. It's just actually doing it kind of thing. So yeah, that's how I did it, and I had to make my own. Horse gear, very good. I'll show you how it works as well. Get on your horse, use the roar thingy, and you saw the extra buff here, the wind's roar. then that's another 5 AP buff that you guys can get as well. And that does add to your sheet AP as well. So 5 AP is 5 AP. The next thing I want to talk about that a lot of new players especially don't do is have an alchemy stone. Now, I'm going to talk about this from both a new player perspective and an endgame player. So if you are a fresh new season character, chances are this is what you have. You have one of those seasonal spirit stones. These are actually very good. Admittedly, you can't recharge them. So it's like once you run out 100 durability, it's done. And don't worry, we'll talk about other stuff in case you do run out of it. So having some sort of effect on, even if there's like no AP or anything on the side, like sheet AP that is, you're still getting like 5 monster damage, combat and skill XP, attack and cast speed and everything, which is very nice to have. So here's what I want to talk about as a beginner if you're not using that one. I would honestly recommend using spirit stones because having some sort of extra buff, like for example 6 AP, 8 accuracy, attack and cast speed 4%, that's a lot nicer than not having it. So once again, you know how we talked about just having AP is 1-to-1? That's like having more gear. And then as you progress further into the game and you decide you want to improve your destruction stone, for example, you want to look at these. Admittedly, I'm pretty sure Pearl Abyss forgot alchemy stones exist in this game, and so it's very hard to actually get some of these, but it's not like impossible. If you just keep an order on, you'll probably get it within a week, depending on which one, obviously. So what I did before I got to like endgame bell stuff is I actually just put an order on a sharp alchemy stone, which is like 8 AP, 10 accuracy. It's not bad. Yeah, it's a billion silver, but it's like nowadays getting a billion silver is maybe like an hour or 2 of grinding, depending on where you're at in the game. And yeah, then later on, as you get further into the game, you probably want to progress into the Vel's Heart. This is where I would say 99% of players are going to be at, and like at the end game, and then the higher like 1%, they're going to be using these Splendids and up. But yeah, it's very hard to get this. It's one of the things I do want eventually as well. But until then, we're stuck with the Vel's Heart. It's not even bad either. So if you don't have it, you don't have it. It's not a big deal. So yeah, having an alchemy stone is one of those things I've gotten a lot of questions on. When is the right time to upgrade? And the answer is when that is your next cheapest upgrade. Or let's say your next piece of gear is like 30 billion silver and you're still using a spirit stone as one of the disposable ones. Actually, there's actually another thing that they added recently that I haven't actually done yet either. So the new Ulakita questline gives you a Ator's Power Stone, and this is actually really good. It's free, and I think you can recharge it. So yeah, you can get it now. I actually kind of forgot about it, but I'm glad you can actually get it. It's slightly worse than a Vel, but it's not 16 billion silver, so either way, it's pretty good to me. So there's that. The next thing I'd recommend is artifacts and lightstones. Now, a lot of people don't actually use them because there's a lot of combinations of things to use, and people are unaware of what the best thing is. And I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. It's more of a where do you grind kind of thing, and how like geared are you and or not. So here's what I use. Obviously the things I'm using are very end game, but let me show you some things from a beginner perspective. So as a beginner, one thing you're gonna want is, where is it? Hold on. Extra AP against monsters. So 2 of these is 12 AP against monsters just right off the bat before you put any lightstones in it. And I think that's something that they give you as like the entry level tutorial quest, whatever. It gives you one. And so you can get another one very easily. And then after that, when you decide what you want to do, whether it's PvP or PvE or whatever else you do, you can figure out where you can go from there. But as a general baseline for most people, 2 AP or extra AP against monsters It's basically the equivalent of 1-to-1 against regular AP, but just to enemies in the game, not players. Is always good. And yeah, then whatever Lightstone combo you use, just make sure to go Google like some sheet and find out what is within your budget range. Two things I used were Vicious Shadows, which is like, admittedly, these are both endgame sets. But Vicious Shadows is like crit damage, back attack, and more AP. And then the current one that I'm using is All Out Attack. Is 20 AP, 3 crit damage, but you trade off some damage reduction and evasion. Admittedly, this is for very high-end spots, so new players probably I would not recommend it unless you really know how to play your class and not get hit a lot. So it's one of those very high-end things that I can afford to use, but, you know, like if you're just barely getting into it and you don't know what you're going to do next, probably not. So here's a beginner set that I use as something. So when in doubt, just add straight extra monster damage to your things. And where is it? I actually have no idea where it is, but these thingies. Yeah, so you see this? When in doubt, just add more AP against monsters and you'll be fine. You can look up a chart for everything that gives more. And if you want to use, like, I would say this is kind of a budget, but not best in slot anymore. What I used to use is Death Blow. And basically it is extra AP against monsters and blades, which are kind of expensive, but not as expensive anymore. It's kind of like the mid-tier level Lightstone artifact combo. And it's just like crit rate and monster damage. You can't really go wrong with that. So this is like an intermediate level set. It kind of fell off a little bit just because they added new areas where like monster AP damage is a lot higher. So anyway, this one is not as expensive. I don't think it's bad. It's just not the best. And then, you know, if you're pushing like very endgame stuff, going for strike crystals is actually kind of tedious. So there's that. I know I was a little long-winded on that one, but we'll talk about that in a second. Next, we have Fairies, and this is probably one of the most controversial topics, just because, in my opinion, Fairies are probably the most pay-to-win thing in this game. Yes, I understand that people are like, oh, costumes, you can melt them for crons and gear. I guarantee you, like 99% of players are not buying maxed out costumes every week. There are some players, obviously, that do. Some players that don't. And when you get to endgame, trust me when I say knowing how to play your class is a lot more important than having gear. Because at a certain point, like, it's just what is the flavor of the month class, and then you just play that one. But for all of you who just play one class, I think that anyone that knows how to play their class really well versus someone who re-rolls every month to the most flavor of the month one, the scarier players, in my opinion, are the ones that play like average classes, but they can do it really well. So yeah, there's that. So let's talk about a fairy. In my opinion, the Miraculous Cheer 5 is the most important one you can get, because being able to auto potion, you know, permanently is always a nice thing. Whether you have infinite potions or not, it's not a big deal. Eventually your goal is to get infinite potions, and you basically set it, you move the slider up and down to whatever percentage you want the fairy to use every 2 seconds. The reason why you want 5 is because the cooldown is a little bit different. So let me, where are the skills? So Miraculous Cheer, the cooldown is 3 seconds at level 4, 4 seconds, 5 seconds, 6 seconds. So you want the best one. There's no compromise for that. If you don't get a Miraculous Cheer 5, re-roll it and get a new one. Followed by Feathery Steps and Continuous Care. These are just really nice items to have. I played this game many years before Fairies even came out, and Continuous Care is one of those things that they came out with, I think maybe 1 or 2 years ago. So, like, you definitely don't need them. It's just nice to have. But Miraculous Cheer 5, definitely a grind helper. Next thing I want to talk about is house buffs. Now, this is something that people kind of sleep on. and they don't use it. And admittedly, you probably don't really need to use it for the most part. It's more of the high-end kind of thing that people use to min-max. So you see these things that they give during events at all times, you know, like these cakes, the anniversary cakes and whatnot, or these like random things. So if you look at it, it gives you a buff, and it gives you like how many times you can use it. So it's like a 1 hour buff or something like that. So this one would be like 100 HP. This one would be stamina, and you know, this one is life skill. This one is AP, so like 15 AP. That's huge. And then this one has like drop rate and XP. So if you don't have like the unique ones, here's what I would do. I don't actually remember where they're... Let me hold on. So it's like these thingies, the stuffed head thingies. I don't actually know where they're located under, like what tab. I think it could be furniture. It's probably furniture, in my opinion. Under some sort of wall or, I don't know, decoration. So you just sort by the most expensive and then find a one. So if you buy these things and put them in your house, essentially they give you like extra stats for a certain amount of time, and you just kind of figure out the ones you want. Admittedly, you're probably going to have to make them because the important ones are sold out. So all of you who have never done hunting before, it's time to start learning how to do hunting, and you'll be good. So admittedly, I don't really use house buffs as much if I'm grinding like mid to lower end areas. It's really just like if I'm at the highest end spot and I want to go as fast as possible, and or I don't want to die, I will use those as well. So that's already like 7 things that we talked about in terms of buffs. And the next thing I want to talk about is add-ons. So no matter what class you're playing, having add-ons is probably the most important thing. And basically you go to the like skill instructor, and then you set some add-ons over here. If you are doing PvE exclusively, the highlight ones you really want to have are extra AP against monsters. And it's like 30 AP. That's like 30 AP in gear, but on monsters. And then that's just one tip that a lot of people forget, especially on seasonal characters. Because it's like, oh, okay, get to level 60, finish up your season, and then do something else. But then people forget about these skill add-ons, and that's just missing out on like straight up 30 AP. And then, of course, attack speed, attack casting, and everything that, and more damage allows you to grind faster. So yeah, make sure to put them in. I'm pretty sure every class, it doesn't matter what you do, has extra AP against well, like they have all of these stats, but just make sure to put them in. And that's just, it'll allow you to clear faster. Trust me on that one. And so the next and last thing I want to talk about is the Marni Realm versus the non-Marni Realm. As we all know, there are grind spots out in the open world, and then there are grind spots in the Marni Realm. Essentially the same thing, except one, you can't be interrupted. You do like 1 hour, and then you do something else, like take a break while the Marni Realm time charges, and you do another hour. So the way it works is you look in here, you look at the Marni Realm, it tells you how much time you have remaining, and when you're out of the Marni Realm, the hour recharges. So basically, not all spots have them, but a lot of them do. And you just basically find a spot you grind at, and then it'll auto path you, click the little arrow, it'll take you there, and you grind in peace for an hour, and it's always nice. So a lot of questions people have asked me is the open world one better, or is the Marni one better? I think essentially they're the same for like 99% of spots, and I guess it just depends. Like if you're in a spot that's like older, that came out 4 or 5 years ago or something like that, chances are it's not contested and you'll be fine just grinding out in the open world. Spots that are very contested are usually the ones that make the most silver an hour, which I talk about in the video that I made, best spots for XP, silver, and Agris and everything. Those are the ones that might be a little bit contested. So if you're interested in finding out what those are, I'll leave a link in the description to all of those videos. But yeah, for the most part, they're the same, in my opinion. It's up to you whether you want to grind there or not. and it's overall good. So with that said, just want to say thank you guys so much for watching these videos. I truly do appreciate all your support. We're closing in on 70,000 subscribers, a number that I never thought I would achieve in my life. So just want to say once again, thanks so much for all your support, and hope you guys have a wonderful holiday. If I don't see you again for the rest of the year, hopefully you guys have a wonderful holiday once again. And yeah, hopefully my videos help you guys. So if you are new to your channel, you never heard of me before, welcome first and foremost. I make videos for new players, returning players, and people who are just looking to get better at this game. And so I know with the holidays coming around, a lot of people tried out this game for the first time, maybe watch some of my videos and just like, okay, so how do I improve? Well, you just learned 10 new tips on how to grind more efficiently. And so, yeah, I do a lot of those stuff, update my guides pretty frequently. So I try to make sure that the guides that I make are kind of like up to date. So if you want to check out more of those, I have a Discord, and I know not everyone likes talking and stuff. They just want to learn. So in my Discord, I have a channel for my guides, and I just post a link to the video there. So if you want to find something, you don't even have to talk to anyone. You just go click on the link there, and then they'll just watch the video, and you're all good. So if you have any other questions, though, leave it in the comments. Happy to point you in the right direction. Or if you are on my server and Discord, you can, just ask me a question. Or we also have a channel for gear advice. So if you want to show me a screenshot of your gear, for example, like, here, look at my gear. What do I improve next? And I'll point you in the right direction. It doesn't matter what class you are, or what you're going for. I'll try to help you out. So with that said, that's all I wanted to talk about today. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a fantastic day.